Hey everybody, welcome to Board Game Heaven. My name is Raymond, and in this video I'll be taking a look at Château by Martin van Rossum, published by Tucker's Game Factory. This is a roll and write game for 1 to 4 players, which plays in about 15 minutes for ages 8 and up. And before I start explaining the rules and sharing my thoughts on the game, I'd like to ask you to please hit that subscribe button if you haven't subscribed already. That really does help the channel a lot. And if you're already subscribed, thank you so much. You're an absolute legend. And also check out my Patreon page by clicking the link in the description below. You can become a Patreon saint starting from €1 a month, and in return you will get early access to all of my videos, your name in the credits, and access to Patreon exclusive videos that I post every month. And with that out of the way, let's open up the box and set up a game. To set up a game of Château, shuffle these cards and either randomly deal out or let every player pick one of the cards from the deck so that every player has one of these Châteaus, and they are all different with their own unique abilities as well. Give every player one of these dry erase markers, keep the dice nearby, and put the dice tray in the middle of the table. Then every player passes their Château to the player on their right, so you get the Château from the player on your left, and you cross off a 5 square shape on that Château. You cannot mark off one of these squares with a hammer on it. Any other symbol can be crossed off. And there are different 5 square shapes, and all of these Châteaus will have a legend right here that will tell you all the available shapes. So a 2 square shape is just these two, very simple of course. A 3 will always be a corner like this, unless stated otherwise on a card. 4 squares will be these types of Tetris shapes, and a 5 square will be these available shapes. So you pick one of those from the 5s and you draw that in anywhere on the map, as long as it fits, of course. It needs to be within the walls and it needs to be on the map. And again, you can't cross off any of these hammer symbols. And this map has a special rule for these, but you can ignore that for now. So just see these as empty spots to square off. And once you've done that, you hand it back to the player on your left and you get yours back as well. And then you're ready to play. Let's explain the rules. Players play in clockwise order, and at the start of every turn, one player will take the dice, and this passes on in clockwise order as well, and roll the dice in the dice tray. And there are various results, various faces on these dice. There is, for example, the catapult right here, and those are always dealt with first. For every rolled catapult, you get to cross off 1 square from the Château of the player on your left. So once again, every player hands off their cards to the player on the right, and they get to cross off 1 square. And again, you cannot square off a square with a hammer in it, so any other square is fine. And then you take your cards back, and then you check the other dice. If that is, of course, again a catapult, you do that same thing again. And if it is a shape, you simply cross off a shape that matches that result, and it will be listed on your card. And as you can see, some of these Châteaus will have different rules for those. So the top two here simply have all the available shapes. This one here splits up that shape. So instead of choosing one of those shapes, you get to draw a double and a triple shape anywhere you want. And this one just has different shapes. So if you roll a 4, you get a 3 shape. And if you roll a 5, you get a 4 shape. So make sure to familiarize yourself with these special abilities of your Château and read them out to the other players as well. They are listed in the top right corner here. Usually they are simply very simple with icons. And all of those rules are explained in the rules booklet. This is the Dutch edition, but all of them are right there. So you simply read that out to the other players to familiarize yourself with those rules. Now you can draw the 2 or the 3 shapes as many times as they are rolled. So anytime those are rolled, you can simply draw it in wherever you want, as long as it fits, of course. But the 4 and the 5 results, so this one and this one, have to be crossed off after you use them. Except, of course, for those chateaus that have special rules such as this one and this one. Once a shape is crossed off, you can no longer use that shape to draw into your castle. If you can't draw in the result of a die, or you don't want to, you can also choose to cross off a single square in your chateau. This, of course, doesn't apply to the catapult result. And finally, the die also has a crown symbol on one of the faces. And when a crown is rolled, you check the legend on the right there, which has 6 different symbols underneath that crown, unless stated otherwise on your chateau. And you pick one of those symbols and you cross it off, and then you cross off all the matching symbols in your chateau, which in most cases is 3, but there are some that deviate from that rule. And once again, after all of those have been crossed off, then all of the symbols will be crossed off, so you can't use the crown again. Now, when drawing in a shape, of course, the shape has to fit within the grid. Of course, you can't cross off a crossed off square twice, obviously. And you can rotate or even mirror a shape, so a shape like that can also be mirrored. And if you ever cross off one of your own hammer squares, then you can immediately cross off a single square anywhere in your chateau. And you may, of course, with that hammer square, cross off another hammer and then repeat the process. Some chateaus have special bonuses that can only be used a limited amount of times. For example, this chateau has a bonus that lets you cross off these squares. So then once you've done that, you tick off this little circle here, indicated that you've used it. And here in this case, the one with the swan, there's swans on this one, there's 4 there. You tick that one off as well. And when all players have crossed off the results of the 2 dice results, you pass the dice to the next player and they roll the dice again, and the same thing happens. The first player to cross off every single square in their castle wins the game. Second place goes to the player with the least amount of uncrossed boxes, etc. for third and fourth. And in case of a tie in the final round, when 2 people cross off their last squares in the same round, then if one of those players only used one of the die results to win, then that player wins. And if that's also a tie, they share the victory. There's a beginner variant of the rules for younger players where you only use 1 die and you don't use these special bonuses that these chateaus have. You can also play solo in that case. When you start the game and you cross off the 5-box shape, you do need to cross off one of the hammers, so place that shape over one of your hammers. If you roll a catapult in solo mode, you cross off a single square that has 4 orthogonally adjacent squares that haven't been squared off yet. And if that's not possible, you look for a square that has 3, etc. And you need to keep track of the number of rounds that you play. If you played 15 rounds, you played very poorly. And if you manage to fill in your entire castle in 8 rounds or less, you are a master architect. There's also a around the world variant where every player picks a chateau with a certain color on the edge. And those are all listed here. So some of them are white, you can't pick those, but you can pick any of those castles with a color. So for example, if we pick the Château de Chimay with the black border here, that's number 9, we check the map, and that's this one. Then every player simply plays the game until you finish, and then you follow the line to the next chateau. That would be 15 for this player, and then the next one would be 20. And as you can see, there's all kinds of different ones. So here's the 19, which goes to 20, which goes to 17, for example. The 18 here goes to 1 and then to 3, etc. And those are all the rules for playing Château. Let's go to my final thoughts. So my final thoughts on Château by Tucker's Fun Factory. Let's start with the components. You get a very compact little box that slides out of the side here, which is kind of unique. Don't see that very often. It's very sturdy and thick cardboard, and you can use the inside of the box as your dice tray as well, which is pretty nice. Has the cover art in red all over it as well. And the cards themselves are nice and big, with the picture, a painted picture of the different chateaus, the different castles on one side, and of course the plan, the ground floor of those castles on the other side, with all of the squares and all of the icons in them that you need to cross off. And these are dry erase. The first time I played this, I was kind of worried that this wouldn't be dry erase, but they are. You can literally just use these dry erase pens and cross something off, and then later wipe it off again, which works brilliantly. And so you wouldn't say from just looking at these cards and touching them that this was actually dry erase, but it works really well, and they're nice and thick as well. So the components are really good. You get 4 of these dry erase markers with a little eraser brush on the head there, so you can immediately clear off your crosses once you're done with the game. And please do that quickly, because if it does dry up, if you wait too long, it gets harder to get it off. But if you just do it immediately after playing, it's no problem at all. You get 2 very small wooden dice. They're a bit tiny. I would have liked them to be a bit bigger, but at least the icons on them are clear. There's just the 4 different Tetris shapes, if you will, in different colors as well, and you have the catapult on one side and the crown on the other side. So it's really easy to recognize, but they are wooden and a bit dark. If they had been painted white and then had the images printed on, I think they would have been a little bit clearer, but it works just fine. Then the artwork. I really like the art of all the different castles on all of these cards. They're all different, really nicely done, really beautiful, very colorful, and it's just also a bit educational, because it tells you where the castle is located, and there's even a map in the rule book that shows you where they are and in which country. And yeah, that's really cool. The name is on there, and of course the back of the cards all have this this plan that you need to fill in, also with the surrounding grounds even painted in, so it looks like you're actually there. You're actually looking like a plan of the castle, and that's just really fun and very immersive. And they have all the icons on one side of the board, so you can cross off what you've used, and also here on this side for these special icons that you can also cross off. So it's all very well done on these cards. It's just all there. The theme is kind of fun. As I said, it's a bit educational, as you learn about, well, basically the existence of all of those castles. That's pretty cool, I think. I used to have a deck of playing cards as a kid that also had castles on them, and I really enjoyed that. So this is quite reminiscent of that, and I really do enjoy that. Otherwise, it's just a roll and write where you're crossing off, you know, boxes. But since they all have different layouts because of the plans of these castles, that's pretty interesting too. So I do like that. The theme fits in very well, and every card is different. Every card has a different castle. The gameplay then is also a lot of fun. It's very simple. You just roll your dice, you see what you roll, and everybody gets to cross off things, and that's just fun. It's you're just trying to choose the most optimal thing to cross off. And sometimes with the catapult, you get to cross something off from your neighbor, which is of course suboptimal. You're trying to block things off and try to waste a turn, basically. So there's that. It's very competitive in a way when you roll those catapults, but it doesn't happen that often normally. Of course, it's a game of chance, so it could happen more often than normal. But overall, in a game, we had it happen, like, I mean, maybe 4 or 5 times on average, sometimes less, sometimes more. So, you know, and it goes for everyone at the same time, of course. So that is also very balanced and honest. So that's a lot of fun. I do like that the different castles also have different special abilities, basically, different things you can do, which is depicted in the top corner there with icons. But if you're unsure what they mean, they are all explained in the rules leaflet in the back here. There's 2 of these pages that have all of the castles explained. Then over here you have the map of Europe with the locations of all those cards, which is pretty cool. And the names of all the castles. And the rules are just basically this. So this is all you need to know, and it's very simple. It's even got big illustrations on it. So there's not a whole lot of rules there, as you may have seen in the rules section of this video. It's very simple. Replayability is also quite high, because you can keep on playing this, selecting different castles. So you'll have a different castle every time you play. You can of course also randomize it, but it's, you know, if you've played a game, you can also say, okay, we've played these castles, we erase them, we put them aside, and we play again with the remaining cards, picking new castles every time, and then you shuffle them for next time and you can go again. So I think the replayability is pretty good. There's enough castles in the game to keep you occupied for quite a while, and I mean, even if you at some point end up with the same castle, the game itself is a lot of fun. So I think the replayability is pretty good. Finally, there's the language dependency. Other than the rules, there is no language on the cards, other than the name, of course, of the card, but that's not that important for the gameplay, of course. So fully language independent as well. So in the end, very enjoyable, quick and fun. There's some competitiveness there, sometimes thwarting others' plans. It's dice rolling. Roll and writes are usually always pretty fun. And definitely giving this a thumbs up. I'd like to thank Tucker's Fun Factory for donating a copy for me to review. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and also check out my Patreon page by clicking the link in the description below or the icon at the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time on Board Game Heaven.